I came home to find my mother giving strangers a tour of my house, the house she didn't even know I owned. From the sidewalk, I froze, my chest tightening as laughter spilled out of the open windows. My porch light glowed warm and golden, but to me it looked like a spotlight on betrayal. She strolled through my living room with that confident tone she always used, as if she were the rightful owner, as if every piece of furniture I'd picked out was just decoration for her story. My house, my sanctuary, suddenly felt like a stage set hijacked by the very person I thought I could trust. I didn't barge in. I didn't scream. I smiled, cold, deliberate, and waited until they left. Then, with shaking hands and a heart pounding like a war drum, I changed every lock. Each metallic click echoed louder than thunder, as if the walls themselves knew something had shifted. But here's the truth, that lock wasn't just keeping my mother out. It was about to blow open every secret my family had buried for years. If you've ever felt dismissed, betrayed, or made to feel invisible, or maybe you've experienced the deepest loneliness, or that unbearable pain of losing those you love most, share it. Leave a comment, tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe, because maybe the next story will remind you of your own strength. My name is Alyssa Morgan. I'm 29 years old, a nurse practitioner at Carolina's Medical Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. Most nights, I work 12-hour shifts tending to broken bones, midnight fevers, and the kind of emergencies that never wait for daylight. By the time I step out into the cool dawn air, my scrubs cling with exhaustion, and all I want is silence. That's what this house was supposed to be, a place where I could finally breathe without someone telling me I was too careful, too practical, too ordinary. The house itself sits on the corner of a quiet street lined with maples that burn orange in the fall. It's a 2-story Victorian with peeling white trim, the kind of place people slow down to look at because it carries a certain dignity even in its wear. When I first saw it, sunlight streamed through the stained glass window on the front door, scattering colors across the dusty hardwood floor. I remember whispering to myself, "This is it. This is mine." Growing up, mine wasn't a word I got to use often. My older brother, Ethan, was the golden boy, the one my parents invested in, literally. They gave him seed money for his first business venture. My younger sister, Claire, got tuition paid in full for an MFA program in New York, along with weekly care packages. And me? I got advice. Endless lectures about responsibility, about not aiming too high, about staying appropriate for my station. That word, appropriate, still makes my skin crawl. So I worked. Through nursing school, through double shifts, through weekends where my friends went out while I picked up extra hours. I saved every dime, cut corners, and told no one. I wanted one victory that belonged only to me. When I signed the papers for this house, my hands shook. Not just from fear but from the wild thrill of independence. I imagined family dinners where I could finally host, mornings on the porch swing with coffee, evenings planting tulips in the garden bed. For the first time, I had a sanctuary that wasn't rented, borrowed, or dictated by anyone else. And I kept it a secret. Not my parents, not Ethan, not Claire, not even Rachel, my best friend since middle school. The house was mine, my quiet rebellion against years of being underestimated. But secrets don't stay secrets in my family. And as I would soon discover, the walls I thought were mine alone would become the battlefield for something much bigger. In the Morgan family, roles were assigned early, and they stuck like invisible chains. Ethan was the achiever, the golden child. At 17, he was already driving a brand new truck courtesy of Dad. By 24, he had entrepreneur stamped on every conversation, and when his first construction business needed cash, Mom and Dad didn't hesitate to write a check big enough to cover his missteps. Claire, the baby of the family, was painted as the dreamer. She filled sketchbooks with portraits and cityscapes, and my parents practically tripped over themselves to fund her MFA in New York. They bragged about her artistic courage, sent her monthly stipends, and applauded her brilliant potential, even when her exhibitions drew 5 people and a cat. And then there was me. Alyssa, the practical one. The steady hand, the caretaker, the girl who worked 2 jobs through community college because asking for tuition money was unrealistic. My victories came in the form of pay stubs and folded laundry. No applause. No pride. Just lectures. I can still hear Dad's voice the day I bought my used Honda Civic. A sedan would have been more practical, Alyssa. Better gas mileage, easier maintenance. He said it like I hadn't spent months comparing prices, like my careful planning meant nothing. When I started my weekend photography business, portraits for families, headshots for students, Ethan chuckled and called it a hobby. When I got promoted at the clinic, Mom tilted her head and asked if I'd considered something more serious. Every achievement of mine came filtered through skepticism, as if responsibility could never be worth celebration. So, I stopped seeking it. I stopped handing them my dreams like fragile glass only to watch them weigh and dismiss them. Instead, I built my life in silence, brick by brick. Nursing school by night, 12-hour shifts by day, saving until my bank app finally showed a number that made me cry with relief. And yet, even as I put down that deposit, even as I signed the papers for the house with its wraparound porch and creaky stairs, I carried their voices in my head. It's too much. It's not safe. You're being impulsive. You're not ready. Maybe that's why I kept the house a secret. It wasn't just about independence. It was about protection. About carving out one piece of the world where their doubt couldn't reach me. But families have a way of sniffing out what you most want to protect. And mine was about to bulldoze through the walls I thought I had built so carefully. The day I signed the papers for my house, the air outside the closing office smelled like rain and asphalt, heavy with the kind of possibility that makes your stomach flip. My palms were slick against the pen, and for a second I thought I might actually drop it. The lawyer smiled politely, pushing the final page toward me, but inside I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, ready to leap. Best decision of my life, or the worst mistake I'd ever make. When my signature curved across the bottom line, my chest burned with something sharp and electric. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was building. Claiming. Owning. The seller, Mrs. Whitmore, was a widow in her 70s with soft eyes and a voice like worn lace. She pressed the keys into my hand and said, "This house raised a family once. It deserves another chance. Maybe you're the one it's been waiting for." Her words landed heavier than she probably intended. Because that was exactly what I craved, not just walls and a roof, but proof. Proof that I wasn't the afterthought daughter. Proof that I could create a life on my own terms. In the weeks that followed, the house slowly became mine. After my shifts at the hospital, I'd drive over, sometimes still in scrubs, just to sit on the porch swing and watch the sky fade from peach to indigo. I planted tulips out front, hung string lights along the back fence, bought second-hand furniture piece by piece until the rooms began to feel like chapters of a story I was finally allowed to write. And then there was Muffin. A ginger tabby I adopted from a shelter on a whim one rainy Saturday. He followed me around the creaky halls like a guardian, curling on my lap each night as if he knew the secret I was keeping was precious, fragile, worth defending. I told myself I'd reveal it at Christmas. Picture it, the family gathered around turkey and mashed potatoes, me casually sliding a photo of the house across the table. Their shock would be my triumph. For once, they wouldn't be able to call me impulsive or unrealistic. For once, they'd have to admit I'd done something extraordinary, alone. Until then, the house was mine alone, a secret sanctuary wrapped in quiet joy and whispered hopes. But life doesn't wait for perfect timing. Secrets have a way of cracking open at the worst possible moment. And one ordinary Tuesday morning, while I was polishing dental tools at work and half listening to a patient complain, a notification from my phone shattered everything I thought I controlled. It was a Tuesday morning in late October, the kind of morning that smelled like burnt coffee and disinfectant wipes. I was halfway through cleaning Mrs. Patterson's teeth, listening to her rant about her son-in-law's terrible eating habits, when my phone buzzed. Normally, I ignore notifications during work. But something, call it instinct, made me glance down at the screen. The security camera app was open, flashing red. My breath hitched. On my front porch, clear as day, stood my mother. Her hair was neatly pinned back, her purse slung over her arm like she was heading to Sunday brunch. Beside her was Amber, my brother Ethan's wife, her glossy blonde hair catching the sun. And with them, a woman I didn't recognize. Tall, chic coat, clipboard in hand. My stomach lurched as Mom fumbled with something in her bag. Seconds later, she pulled out a key. A key. To my house. I nearly dropped the scaler in my hand. The image on the tiny screen felt surreal, like watching a movie where you recognize the actors but don't understand the plot. Then it happened. She slid the key into the lock. The door swung open. And my mother, my own mother, ushered them inside with a casual wave, as if she were the rightful owner giving a tour. The taste of metal filled my mouth. My knees went weak, but somehow I kept my voice steady as I told Mrs. Patterson, "I'm so sorry. Family emergency. We'll have to reschedule." I ripped off my gloves, grabbed my bag, and bolted. The drive home was a blur of red lights and pounding thoughts. How did she get a key? Why was Amber there? Who the hell was the woman in the expensive coat? And more importantly, why did it look like my mother was preparing to sell my house? By the time I turned onto Maple Ridge Drive, my heart was hammering so loud I could barely hear the engine. The driveway was empty. They were gone. But the evidence was everywhere. The front door sat slightly ajar, just as Mom had always left it growing up, careless, assuming the world was hers to manage. Inside, furniture was shifted, cabinets left open, the refrigerator door hanging loose. My sanctuary felt invaded, violated. And then I saw it. On the kitchen counter lay a note in her familiar handwriting. "Alyssa, honey, don't be upset. This is for the best. Amber and Denise, my realtor friend, think this place has real potential. We'll talk tonight. Love, Mom. P.S. Cute cat." The room tilted. My hands shook as I crumpled the note. This wasn't just about a house. This was about every moment I'd been overlooked, every decision second-guessed, every reminder that in my family's eyes, would never truly be trusted. That day, something inside me snapped. I stood in my kitchen, the note still crumpled in my fist, my pulse roaring in my ears. The air smelled wrong, like unfamiliar perfume and the faint tang of someone else's fingerprints on my life. Muffin darted nervously around my feet, his tail puffed like he could sense my panic. I opened the cabinets, one by one. A cereal box shoved aside, my carefully stacked plates shuffled. Even the refrigerator hummed with indignation, its door half open, the cold spilling out as though mocking me. They had touched everything. My sanctuary had been pawed through like a showroom. My throat burned as I dialed my mother's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice annoyingly cheerful. "Oh, good. You found my note." "Mom," I said, my voice low, trembling, "how do you have a key to my house?" A pause, then a breezy laugh. "Sweetheart, don't be so dramatic. Mrs. Whitmore's daughter is in my book club. She mentioned selling to a young Morgan girl, and I put two and two together. I simply asked for a spare key, just in case. I worry about you living all alone." My hand clenched around the phone until my knuckles whitened. "You broke into my house, Mom. With strangers. You're confused," she chirped, as though explaining fractions to a child. "I didn't break in. I was helping. Amber and Denise wanted to see the place. Ethan and Amber are considering an investment property, and Denise is the best realtor in Mecklenburg County. I thought. You thought you could make decisions for me. I cut in, my voice sharp, shaking. Her tone shifted, softer, patronizing. Honey, I know you believe you can manage all this. But the mortgage must be stretching your budget thin. And the neighborhood, it's not exactly the safest. This could be a perfect solution. Think of the profit if you sold, or the stability if you rented to Ethan and Amber. I almost laughed, but it came out like a gasp. You're unbelievable. She sighed. Alyssa, I just want what's appropriate for you. That word again. Appropriate. My entire life distilled into a single syllable that erased every sacrifice, every late-night shift, every ounce of independence I had clawed for. I pressed my palm flat against the cool countertop, grounding myself. Mom, listen carefully. This is my house. Mine. If you, Ethan, or Amber step inside again without my permission, I will call the police. On the other end of the line, silence stretched. Finally, she spoke, her voice tight. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more. I ended the call before she could reply, the dial tone slicing through the kitchen like a blade. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about a house. It was a battle for control, and my mother had just declared war. The next morning, I tried to bury myself in work, but my hands trembled as I updated patient charts. The hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed above me, each flicker setting my nerves on edge. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I stayed focused, I could ignore the storm waiting outside my door. But storms always find a way in. When I stepped into the waiting room, my brother Ethan was there. 6 feet of pressed khakis and button-down charm, his dark hair combed neatly, the same green eyes we'd all inherited from Dad staring straight at me. He stood up as if we were kids again, like this was some sibling spat he could smooth over. Bryn, he said, using the nickname I'd abandoned years ago. We need to talk. I froze, the chart still in my hands. Not here. I'm working. He lowered his voice, but not enough. Mom told me what happened. Heat shot through my chest. Then you know she broke into my house. He glanced around at the patients, embarrassed, like I'd shouted profanity in church. She didn't break in. She was trying to help. Help? My laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. Ethan, she gave a realtor a tour of my home. Without my knowledge. That's not help, that's trespassing. He shifted, uncomfortable. She was worried about you. Living alone in that neighborhood, managing a mortgage. You know how Mom is, she panics, she meddles. She meant well. I dropped the chart onto the counter with a snap. Stop excusing her. This isn't about a neighborhood, Ethan. It's about control. She doesn't trust me to make decisions, so she tried to erase mine. His jaw tightened, but he kept that maddening calm. Families don't keep secrets, Alyssa. If you'd told us about the house, maybe none of this would have happened. I stared at him, stunned. Families don't steal either. For a moment, his face softened, guilt flickering like a shadow. Then he straightened. Look, Mom's upset. She wants to fix this. Just call her tonight, talk it through. I leaned in, my voice low, razor sharp. Hear me, Ethan. If you, or Amber, or anyone else shows up at my house uninvited again, I will call the police. That's not a threat. That's a promise. His cheeks flushed red. He glanced at the curious faces in the waiting room, then back at me. For a heartbeat, we weren't siblings, we were combatants drawing lines in blood. You're making this harder than it has to be, he muttered. No, Ethan, I said, stepping back. I'm making it exactly as hard as it should be. As he left, I caught the look on his face, the same one from childhood when I'd done something he couldn't understand. Frustration mixed with pity, as if I was being deliberately difficult instead of standing up for myself. And for the first time, I wondered if my own brother even saw me at all. By Thursday morning, I'd had enough. I called Secure Solutions and explained, diplomatically, that I was having a family boundary issue. The locksmith, a stocky man named Jonathan with kind eyes, didn't press. He just nodded knowingly and got to work. One by one, the locks came out. The front door, the back door, even the gate latch to the garden. With each metallic clatter, I felt a weight lifting from my chest. When Jonathan turned the final deadbolt and handed me the new keys, he said, "Good for you. Families can be the toughest. Boundaries matter." I tucked the keys into my palm like weapons. For the first time since that note on the counter, I felt a sliver of control. That night, as the autumn sun bled into the horizon, I curled on the couch with Muffin purring in my lap. The house hummed around me, safe and sealed. Or so I thought. At exactly 7:14 p.m., the doorbell shrieked. I didn't move. A second later, fists pounded against the wood, rattling the new deadbolt. "Alyssa Marie Morgan. Open this door right now." It was my mother. Her voice cut through the quiet like a siren, rising and falling in sharp, furious waves. I stood, heart hammering, and walked to the window. She stood on the porch, her breath visible in the cool night air, hair frizzing out of its bun. She jabbed at the doorbell again and again, her face flushed with indignation. "I know you're in there. Your car's in the driveway." I opened the window just enough to be heard. "We can talk like this, Mom. Or you can call next time, like a normal person." Her eyes widened. Normal people don't change their locks to keep their mothers out. I steadied my voice. Normal mothers don't break into their daughter's home. For a moment, she froze, recalibrating. Then her tone softened, syrupy but strained. "Sweetheart, I understand you're upset. I should have asked first, but I was only trying to help. This house, the mortgage, the upkeep. It's too much for someone in your position." My position. That familiar knife of doubt slipped between my ribs. Appropriate. Practical. Never enough. I gripped the window frame. I don't care about Denise's advice. I don't care about Ethan and Amber's investment plans. This house is mine. And I am keeping it. Her voice cracked, part hurt, part fury. "You're being stubborn and short-sighted. Don't expect us to bail you out when this all collapses." She turned, marching down the porch steps, her heels clicking against the wood like gunshots. The old Ford truck door slammed, and then she was gone, leaving me in the glow of the porch light, victorious but hollow. I should have felt strong. Instead, the silence pressed in heavy, reminding me that every win seemed to cost me another piece of family. And the loneliest battles are the ones you fight from your own living room. The house was quiet. Too quiet. For the next 2 weeks, my phone barely buzzed. No cheerful, "good morning" texts from Mom, no half-hearted check-ins from Dad, not even a casual meme from Claire. The silence was almost worse than the pounding fists on my door. At first, I told myself I didn't care. I threw myself into projects. Painted the guest bedroom a soft lavender, screwed floating shelves into the living room wall, finally hung the gallery of black and white photographs I'd been planning for months. Each stroke of paint, each drilled nail, felt like a declaration, I don't need them. This house is enough. But when the brush dried, and the hammering stopped, the rooms echoed with absence. Muffin followed me like a shadow, curling in sunlit patches, watching me with those amber eyes that seemed to ask, "Is this really what you wanted?" Claire broke the silence once, with a single text that read, "Maybe just apologize and move on. It's easier." Easier. As if my life's work, my independence, my boundary was nothing more than a tantrum to be smoothed over. I stared at the message until the letters blurred, then set my phone face down on the counter. Nights were the worst. I'd sit on the porch swing, string lights glowing faintly above me, listening to the neighborhood hum, the distant bark of a dog, the faint rush of cars on the main road. Every sound made me wonder if I'd traded one kind of prison for another, their control for my isolation. The guilt gnawed at me. Should I have told them sooner? Was keeping the house a secret just as manipulative as Mom's trespass? I replayed every argument in my head, searching for a line I could have softened, a word I could have swallowed. But each time, I circled back to the same truth: they didn't respect me. They never have. It was Rachel who finally broke through the haze. She showed up one evening with takeout from Luigi's and a bottle of cheap red wine, plopping down cross-legged on my living room floor. "Okay, spill," she demanded between bites of chicken parmesan. "I heard through the grapevine you bought a house and are now feuding with the entire Morgan clan. Care to explain why I had to hear it from my hairdresser's cousin who works at the title office?" Her mock outrage stung, but her presence felt like sunlight after a long winter. I mumbled something defensive about wanting something that was just mine, something untouched by opinions and unsolicited advice. Rachel rolled her eyes. "And instead of enjoying your gorgeous house, you're eating sad sandwiches alone and brooding like a Victorian heroine." I laughed, a sound I hadn't heard from myself in weeks. She wasn't wrong. But even her jokes couldn't erase the hollow ache that lingered when she left. I had the house, the freedom, the locks. Yet in the silence that followed, I couldn't shake the fear that maybe, just maybe, I'd lost something bigger than I realized. And that's when the last person I expected came looking for me. 3 days later, as I was leaving the hospital after a 12-hour shift, I spotted a familiar truck in the parking lot, Ethan's silver Silverado. My stomach sank. The last thing I needed was another ambush. But when the driver's window rolled down, it wasn't Ethan. It was Amber. She gave me a small, almost nervous smile. "Can we talk?" I hesitated, keys clutched tight in my fist. My sister-in-law and I had never been close. At family dinners, she was always the polished hostess, the one who made Ethan's ego glow brighter. She was bubbly, charming, the picture-perfect wife. And me? I was the quiet sibling who never measured up. So why was she here? 5 minutes, she pleaded, her voice lower, more serious than I'd ever heard. Against my better judgment, I slid into the passenger seat. The faint scent of vanilla and stress hung in the air. Amber gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing holding her together. "I owe you an apology," she began. "A big one." I raised an eyebrow. "For breaking into my house." Her shoulders slumped. "That was me. I asked your mom to show me the place." The words hit like ice water. "You what?" "Not like you think," she rushed on. "God, this is coming out all wrong. Alyssa, James, your brother, has been struggling. The business isn't doing well. We're behind on our mortgage. He hasn't told your parents because he's too proud, but things are bad." I stared, my pulse racing. Ethan, the golden boy, struggling. Impossible. Amber swallowed hard. "When your mom mentioned you bought a house, I panicked. I thought maybe you'd be open to renting us a room or letting us house sit. Something. I didn't mean for it to spiral like this. I was desperate." Her voice cracked, and for the first time, I saw her not as the flawless wife, but as a woman drowning. Still, the betrayal sliced deep. "So I wasn't irresponsible. I was your backup plan." Amber winced. "I'm sorry. I should have come to you directly. I should have told you the truth." Silence filled the truck, heavy and suffocating. My anger pulsed, but beneath it, something shifted. Pity? Understanding? I wasn't sure. I looked out the window, the hospital lights flickering against the glass. Why didn't Ethan just ask me? Amber let out a broken laugh. Because you're his little sister. In his head, you'll always be the one who needs saving, not the one who can save. The words lodged in my chest like splinters. Even Amber, the outsider, saw me that way. She turned, eyes glossy. For what it's worth, your house is beautiful. You should be proud of yourself. It was the first time anyone in my family had said that. I stepped out of the truck with my mind spinning, my chest tight. If my family wanted a confrontation, they were going to get one. That Saturday, I did something no one expected, not even myself. I sent a group text to my family. Dinner at my house. Sunday. 6 p.m. dress casual. I'll cook. The responses came fast. Mom called twice, Dad sent a thumbs up emoji, Claire replied with 3 confused faces, and Ethan, nothing. By Sunday evening, the air buzzed with nerves as their cars filled my driveway. From the kitchen window, I watched them climb out, Mom clutching a casserole dish like a peace offering, Dad with his hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets, Claire yawning after her long drive from New York, and Ethan trailing behind Amber, his face set like stone. I opened the door before they could knock. "Welcome to my home," I said, my voice steady. They stepped inside, their eyes darting around, taking in the lavender walls, the floating shelves, the photographs carefully hung. Muffin strutted across the floor like the proud guardian he was. For the first time, this house didn't feel like a secret, it felt like armor. The tour was deliberate. I showed them every room, every detail, every choice I'd made. And when I saw their eyes soften, Dad running his fingers along the restored mantel, Claire murmuring, "It's gorgeous," something inside me tightened. They were seeing me. Finally. Dinner was lasagna, garlic bread, salad from my garden. We ate in tense silence until Mom finally cleared her throat. "Why didn't you tell us, Alyssa? We could have helped." I set down my fork. Because every time I make a decision, someone in this family has an opinion about how I could have done it better. Ethan frowned. "That's not true." I met his eyes. "When I started my photography business, what did you say?" He shifted uncomfortably. Silence. "Nice little hobby," I reminded him. "When I got promoted at the clinic, Mom, you asked if I'd thought about doing something more serious. Dad, when I bought my car, you lectured me about practicality. Every milestone I've reached has been dismissed, minimized, or second-guessed." The words landed heavy, pressing down on the table like a storm cloud. Amber spoke softly, "She's right." All eyes snapped to her. She glanced at Ethan, then back at me. "About the house. About everything. I owe you an apology, Alyssa. I never should have gone behind your back." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. I took a breath, my voice steady but sharp. "This is my house. Mine. If you need my help, you ask me directly. And you respect my answer. No more back doors. No more keys I didn't give." Mom's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I just wanted to protect you." "Protecting isn't controlling," I said, holding her gaze. "If you want to be part of my life, you need to trust me to live it." The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. The silence stretched across the dinner table like a drawn-out breath, thick enough to choke on. For once, no one interrupted me. No one dismissed me. They just sat there, stunned, chewing on words heavier than the lasagna cooling between us. Finally, Dad cleared his throat, his voice low and careful. "She's right." All eyes swung toward him. He looked at me, his contractor's hands resting on the wood of my dining table, the same hands that had built houses for strangers but never thought his daughter could claim one of her own. You did this. On your own. That's something to be proud of. Something flickered in Mom's eyes, confusion, pride, maybe even shame. She dabbed at her mouth with a napkin, her voice trembling. I should have said that first, Alyssa. I'm sorry. The words hit harder than any argument we'd had. My chest tightened, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. Claire leaned back in her chair, twirling a piece of garlic bread in her fingers. Honestly, I don't know if I could have done this. Live alone, buy a whole house. I can barely manage my studio apartment. She smiled faintly, her voice tinged with awe. It's impressive. For the first time in years, my family wasn't looking at me like the afterthought. They were seeing me, the woman who had sacrificed, planned, saved, and fought for this moment. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his fork clinking against the plate. His eyes avoided mine, but when Amber laid a hand on his, he finally spoke. I should have trusted you. You're right. I treated you like the little sister who needed guidance, when maybe I'm the one who needed it. Amber added softly, we're struggling, Alyssa. And I should have come to you honestly, not through your mom. That wasn't fair. I swallowed, the bitterness loosening slightly. If you need my help, ask me. Directly. And respect my answer, whatever it is. Ethan nodded, looking more human than I'd seen him in years. I glanced at Mom, who was twisting her napkin into shreds. I need you to understand something. I'm not angry because you worry. I'm angry because you didn't trust me to know what I need. Getting a key to my house without asking, bringing strangers inside, that's not help. That's control. Her lips trembled. I don't want to lose you. You won't, I said quietly. But you have to let me live my life. Even if I make mistakes, they'll be mine. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She reached across the table, and for the first time in months, I didn't pull away. That night, under the glow of my own dining room lights, I realized something had shifted. The house was no longer just a secret sanctuary. It had become a battleground, and maybe, just maybe, the start of peace on my terms. When the plates were cleared and the wine glasses sat half empty, the sharp edges of the evening softened. We lingered in the living room, the glow of the string lights I'd hung weeks ago spilling in through the window. For once, no one rushed to fill the silence. It wasn't the heavy, suffocating kind this time, it was the tentative calm that follows a storm. Dad wandered toward the fireplace, running his hand along the restored mantel. You did good work here, he murmured, more to himself than anyone. The simple acknowledgement was like a stone lifted from my chest. Claire curled into the armchair, her curls falling out of their bun, her expression gentler than I'd seen in years. I wasn't kidding earlier, she said. I really don't think I could have pulled this off. You make it look easy, Alyssa. But I know it wasn't. I smiled faintly, swallowing the lump in my throat. It wasn't easy. But it was worth it. Across the couch, Ethan sat stiff, staring into his lap. Then, almost reluctantly, he pulled out his phone, typed something, and slid it toward me. On the screen, a simple text, "You did good, sis." My breath caught. He hadn't called me sis in years. Amber squeezed his hand, then turned to me. I don't know what's going to happen with the business. But I promise, no more secrets. If we need help, we'll come to you the right way. I nodded. For the first time, the words didn't feel like smoke. They felt real. Mom sat closest to me, her hands clasped tight. Her eyes were red, her voice fragile. I don't always understand your choices. But tonight, I saw what you've built. And I'm proud of you, Alyssa. I should have said it long ago. Tears stung my eyes. I didn't trust my voice, so I just reached over and held her hand. Her grip was trembling, but it was there. Present. When they finally left, their tail lights disappearing down Maple Ridge Drive, I stood at the doorway with Muffin weaving between my ankles. The night air was crisp, tinged with wood smoke from a neighbor's chimney. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like an intruder in my own home. I felt rooted. This house wasn't just walls and windows anymore. It was a marker. A line drawn in the sand. A promise that I could stand on my own, and still keep my family, if only they chose to meet me halfway. The victory wasn't loud. It wasn't fireworks or applause. It was quieter than that, softer. But sometimes, the quietest victories change everything. That night, after everyone left, I sat on the porch swing with Muffin curled in my lap. The street was quiet, just the hum of a far-off car and the steady chorus of crickets. The house glowed softly behind me, its windows no longer feeling like glass walls to be breached but like eyes watching over me, standing with me. I thought about the locks. About how a simple piece of metal could change the balance of power in a family. Turning that key wasn't just about safety, it was about claiming ownership of my choices. And isn't that what we're all searching for? So many of us are taught that family means unquestioned loyalty, endless compromise, silent obedience. But real family, healthy family, can only exist when there's trust, respect, and room for individuality. Setting boundaries doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you strong enough to protect your peace. I realized something important: independence doesn't mean isolation. Standing up for yourself doesn't mean shutting people out. It means drawing a line where love can actually thrive without resentment, without control. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged. Not because my family finally gave me permission, but because I gave myself permission first. I looked down at Muffin, his eyes half closed, purring against the rhythm of my heartbeat. "We did it," I whispered. "Not just buying a house, but building a life on my own terms. And here's the part one want to leave with you. Maybe for you it isn't a house. Maybe it's a career choice your family doesn't understand. Maybe it's a relationship they don't approve of, or a dream they think is too risky. But if you're waiting for everyone else to validate your choices, you'll be waiting forever. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is turn the key, metaphorical or literal, and say, this is mine. This is who I am. And I'm proud of it. Because when you start living on your own terms, that's when the world finally begins to respect you, even if it takes a while for them to catch up. So, I'll ask you, have you ever had to set boundaries with your family? Did it hurt, or did it set you free? Share your story in the comments. I promise, someone out there needs to hear it. And maybe, just maybe, tonight will be the first night you fall asleep feeling like you finally belong.